What's up, my friend? My name is André. Today I'll be reacting to what if every US state became independent. But before I go into that, can I ask you for one thing? If you can leave a like on this video, thank you so much for that, my friend. This is the best way to show support. If you can subscribe, oh man, in that case, forget about it. You make my day. Have that in consideration. Now, link for the original video in my description. You guys end up recommending this one quite a lot, so let's play it.
Sometimes we forget how big the US actually are, at least I do, and how large and powerful some of its states can be. Many of the states are economically powerful enough to surpass certain countries in the world, or they would be. So let's take a look at what would be the reality if each US state became independent and its own country.
Okay.
Now, we're going to assume that this would be viable, forget the issues of military amongst other obstacles that would effectively make this impossible to ever happen.
Makes sense.
We're also not going to take into account the fact that the US dissolving itself would not necessarily mean 50 new countries. Some others might unite into smaller unions, some could join neighboring countries like Canada or Mexico, but not for the sake of this video.
To be honest, this is the first time I see California red and Texas blue. But okay.
I'm going to be doing is just looking at the data of states and project how they would do as a country when compared to each other and the rest of the world. First, population. California comes at the top with 39 million, surpassing current countries like Poland or Canada, around the 33rd most populous country in the world. Texas is second with 28 million, Florida with 20.
Okay, just a quick pause, but California is also huge. California is what? Probably top 5, maybe even top 3 biggest state in America, right? Because I believe Alaska is first, and I think second is Texas. But California is, maybe Montana is all, no, I think maybe 3. Okay, really interesting actually. So many people live there, is actually crazy, the number.
New York with 19 and Pennsylvania with 12. At the bottom of the population chart, we would have Alaska with 740,000, Vermont with 620, and Wyoming with 580,000, with less population than countries like Cyprus, Comoros, or Bhutan. Next,
to be honest, that's so crazy that Wyoming, right, have less population than Cyprus, because Cyprus is so small. I wonder if buying land there is super cheap, because if no one lives there, I think there will be a lot of things available. At least this is my logic, I'm not sure.
Size. Alaska would be the biggest country out of the Union, becoming the 18th largest country in the world, smaller than Libya but larger than Iran. Texas and California would follow as the second and third largest countries out of the US. At the bottom of this list would be Rhode Island, Delaware, and Connecticut. Delaware is so small that it's about the size of less than 1/5 of Estonia, and Rhode Island is smaller than the French island.
So lives more people in Delaware than in Wyoming, for example? I mean, seems like that's the case, but this is almost unbelievable, right?
Of Corsica. Also noteworthy that states like New York or Florida, who are prominent in the other rankings we'll see next, aren't that big, occupying the 27th and 22nd places respectively. Florida, for instance, is only a little larger than Portugal, and New York is...
God damn it. Come on. Let's read it back. Makes me happy to hear someone saying Portugal in an American video.
Florida, for instance, is only a little larger than Portugal, and New York...
I have my doubts about that. I'm joking.
is close to the size of Belarus, showing us that size doesn't necessarily mean more economic power. In
Wait, size does not... No, never mind.
Economic terms, California would be ranking number 1. It's by far the most productive state and even self-sufficient in some aspects. And it would become the world's 5th largest economy, only behind China, Japan, Germany, and the UK. Texas wouldn't be that far behind though, also in second place as the world's 10th largest economy, between Brazil and Canada. The current
Wow.
economic might of the US is demonstrated by the fact that in an event like this, 4 states would be in the G20: California, Texas, New York, and Florida.
Okay, this is really interesting. Honestly, this is one of the reasons why America is the number one country in the world. California, Texas, New York, Florida, all of those states, they produce so much. Texas, the main reason is the oil, right? This is really interesting.
Kicking out Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and South Africa, as well as the US. This economic reality is demonstrated by the GDP of each state, or each new country in this case. California would be at the top again, with a GDP of $2.7 billion. Texas with $1.7 billion, New York with $1.4
So California makes so much money. The reason is the tech companies, right? The Apples and stuff like that. Texas is more about oil, like I said, I believe it. New York is New York, so.
and Florida with 970 million. It seems as if, in the case of independence, these 4 would be at the top of almost all rankings.
To be fair, I think those are the 3 most famous states in America: California, Texas, and New York. Florida is also quite famous, to be fair, but I think Texas and California, Texas, California, and New York are in different levels. New York as a city is the most famous thing, in at least my perspective as a European. But Texas is also crazy famous. For example,
Amongst the old states. However, if we look at the GDP in another perspective, the GDP per capita, Massachusetts would have the highest one, ranking number 9 in the world, just behind the United Arab Emirates. The District of Columbia would technically be higher, but since it isn't an official state, I guess it would just be absorbed into Virginia in this scenario. This map...
I actually don't understand that District of Columbia very well. I know there was a couple of references with Washington. I may have to look into a video about that, because that makes me a bit confused, to be honest.
Is really interesting. It's a bit outdated from 2013, but it shows the...
Man. My country. Okay, so... okay, what is this? Let's run back.
Is really interesting. It's a bit outdated.
Man, I have to pause it again. Finally, we are bigger than Spain.
From 2013, but it shows the equivalent GDP of each state to a current existing country, matching North Dakota with Uzbekistan, New Mexico with Ecuador, Connecticut to Greece, or Alaska to Luxembourg. But
Jesus, I almost saw Alaska to Portugal. Okay, not that bad. But what state is this one? Okay, sorry, my friends, but I have to see it. Let me run, because I'm really curious. So this is the state above California. Oregon. No, I mean, there is some saying that beggars cannot be choosers or something like that, right? Oregon is beautiful. So Portugal and Oregon are equivalent. I take that. I'm sorry. Spoilers.
It's a bit outdated from 2013, but it shows the equivalent GDP of each state to a current existing country, matching North Dakota with Uzbekistan, New Mexico with Ecuador, Connecticut to Greece, or Alaska to Luxembourg. But values have changed since then, and even...
Wait, Texas alone have similar GDP to Australia? That's crazy. And Brazil... This is actually quite interesting. I can spend at least 10 minutes looking at this. This for me is fascinating. I know you guys do not like pauses, but man, this is really interesting. Hong Kong, okay, Ecuador. I believe this is what? This is Louisiana, right? Okay, after the video, I might take a look at this one. So Florida, Netherlands. Quite impressive.
And these ones are a rough approximation. The
Mm.
end of the US would also mean that a lot of the states would have to change their state flags, most of which have something to do with the Union.
Okay.
Most state flags are just the state seal, and usually the seal has a lot of elements of the US, like the eagle, the order of admission into the Union, or sometimes the actual US flag, so a change would definitely be in order for those. States like Ohio would probably want something that is more about their own identity. For instance, each state has an official bird, tree, and flower, so these could be put into use. On Ohio's case, the buckeye tree or the cardinal bird could be symbols on a new flag. I guess that
there is a football team that is the Cardinals, right? Am I making this up on the spot? But I have an idea about that.
in this case, states like California, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, New Jersey, or Maryland would have their problem solved having already original flags. In the case of California or Texas, these are even flags that already represented the territories at a time of independence, so it would make even more sense to maintain them. Religion would also be an interesting topic. 14 of these new countries would be of Catholic majority. 33 would be Protestant and 3 would be Mormon. Utah and
Oh wow, Protestant is bigger than Catholic. Okay, in my country, Catholic is by far the biggest. But Christianity is all over America, I guess. Okay.
Idaho, creating the only 3
By the way, I'm also, I believe in Jesus, so this makes me happy.
countries in the world who have a Mormon majority.
Mormon, I should not comment a lot because, frankly, I do not know that well how this religion works. But Protestant and Catholic are very popular in my country.
Along with Tonga, a small Pacific island. It's also interesting to see something else. Given that despite these differences, all states maintain a Christian majority, what would be the second largest religion in each of these new countries? The West
I don't know actually. I don't think Islam will be that big in America. I don't think that's the case. I believe there is a lot of Jewish influence in America, right? So maybe that.
West Coast, Alaska, Hawaii, and some of the Midwest have Buddhism as their second largest religion. The Northeast,
Okay.
Judaism, and a lot of the
See.
South and Center states have Islam. Southern states are the most religious, at least in terms of attendance, so we could assume that religion would play a larger role in these future countries. States like Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire are on the opposite end, with lower church attendance and perhaps less importance of religion for the population. Assuming that military issues would not be a problem, and that the military power of the US would simply be divided among states according to the nature of each soldier, Texas would have the largest military, with a total of 292.
Okay, another thing that I had no idea. So if they split, Texas would be the most protected one, apart from the people that have a lot of guns. So they will be extra protected. Yeah, do not mess with Texas, I'm saying.
2,000 troops. California would follow with a total of 247,000. And keep in mind that this data isn't really certain and might be outdated. With this data, Texas would be the 20th strongest military force in the world, above Canada, and California would follow right behind. However,
I said this in other video, someone got mad at me. But it was a joke, and I will repeat the joke. I said, if Canada tries to fight America, Texas alone can defeat Canada. Someone told me, André, you are crazy to say that. No, I'm putting my money on Texas. Sorry, it is what it is. Canadians cannot win.
this is just about
By the way, I love Canada. I'm just joking with you guys.
soldiers. The question would be put of how to divide.
Actually, I have to go back for one thing. I'm joking with you guys, but I actually believe Texas would win. Sorry, but no sorry at the same time.
Other military supplies and vehicles like tanks, the US Navy, the Air Force.
Sorry, I have to run back because I was making too much jokes.
This is
Too
just
many
about
jokes.
soldiers. The question would be put of how to divide other military supplies and vehicles, like
Mm.
tanks, the US Navy, the Air Force. In my opinion, military unity is what makes a US breakup most unlikely. The fact that they would abdicate being the world's strongest military force, and the mere confusion and mess that it would be dealing with the post-Union military force. We can also take a look at some other interesting statistics that show us current differences between states that would transfer into differences between the new countries. For instance, the legalization of marijuana, legal on all of the West Coast for recreational use, for medical use in a bunch of other states, but illegal in some others. And remember that this is before the 2018 midterm election. In terms of crime rate, should the current stats be maintained, Vermont, Maine, and Minnesota would be the safest of the 50 countries. New Mexico, Alaska, Louisiana, and Arkansas would be the top 4 most dangerous countries.
Man, this. Wait, how is this possible? Sorry, this one is very important for me to understand.
Minnesota would be the safest of the 50 countries. New Mexico, Alaska, Louisiana, and Arkansas would be the top 4 most dangerous countries.
Alaska. I thought the South was quite safe. I mean, why are those? First of all, Alaska is a weird one. Louisiana, I believe, have some problems, right? But this surprises me. I have to admit. Hmm.
The states with the highest percentage of poor people could likely be in the South, while the ones with the least percentage of people in poverty would be in the Northeast. Some countries would have a male population majority, like Hawaii, North Dakota, or Wyoming, and others would have a female majority, like Delaware, Alabama, Mississippi, or Maryland, amongst many other stats. The thing is, all of these statistics, despite being about specific states, are collected in the context of the Union. Should the US dissolve, all of them would probably change because the way the states are is dependent or at least related to their coexistence within the same nation. For instance, California's economic might maybe would be reduced if it instantly saw its neighbors as new countries and not member states of the same union, because new trade agreements would need to be drafted, etc. And new necessities would emerge. For instance, the need of each new country to have their own military, meaning expenses in that respect, amongst so many other changes that would maybe change the power relation that now exists between states. However, I think we can draw a few conclusions from all this. In the event of every state becoming independent, 4 of them would instantly become powerful countries in the world: California,
Sure.
Texas, New York, and Florida. They top the most significant criteria: population and economic power. However, others might also be at the top of successful countries which would emerge. Massachusetts has a solid public education and good local government, using a somewhat European model in taxes, so they might be able to make it work. Other smaller states might have a more difficult time and lose a lot of their wealth as consequence of the central government not being around anymore. Maybe new unions
Makes
would
sense.
emerge, and we can only really try and guess what would happen. If you enjoy this one, remember to subscribe to catch new ones.
Great
and leave a
video,
comment below
honestly.
with your opinion. I will see you next time.
Okay. Well, I really like this video. I may have to take a look at this channel a bit more, general knowledge. But yeah, my friends, tell me your perspective on this. I thought was fascinating all of the comparisons you end up making. To be honest, I had an idea that Texas, California, New York, and also Florida, I would say, would do very well as an independent country. But other parts of the US may struggle, right? So I would like to see a video, but I'm not sure if that's available on YouTube or not, where there is a similar logic to this, but putting a couple of states together, like unions. I'm sorry, because I think that would be quite fascinating. Because I assume certain states would not stay alone, like Wyoming, right? Probably will merge with other states to become a bit stronger and have a better economy. But that's just me saying. I'm not sure. My friends, do not forget to leave a like. Really means a lot to me. Subscribe, all the good stuff. See you guys next time. Bye, my friends. And Happy New Year.